general topics of discussion. And then the key thing is action items, like decisions that are made, questions that are raised. And those will be posted to our website. So any community members interested in seeing those could see those. We also should have a process by which the subcommittees approve the minutes. So once these minutes are up at our next meeting, we will approve the previous month's minutes. And this will be going on for all of the subcommittees. So yes, Judith.
Can I make a comment on minutes? Claudia and I were talking, what would be very helpful to us is if every subcommittee built in like the last 10 minutes, re-summarizing any action items and who has agreed to do them, and talking about next steps and what people are planning for the next month's agenda. We're having a really hard time getting agendas on time to get them posted. So the last one we got day of, but we thought maybe this way it would help, you know, create that through line.
Yeah, I sent, sorry, I got a little excited as the emails were coming in late before this meeting started. So I sent right before it started a little structure, an idea. Obviously, I'm sure everyone knows how to take notes, but I just wanted to provide, if you use like some sort of template, and it could make it easy to make sure you just get what is needed for the community to look at, has things in there. And it also has statistic stuff, which is, I think, something that Lakiana raised as a good thing we should start working on capturing more of, which includes things like how many PCCEP members were there, how many community members were there, how many sworn officers. Then
Right.
at the end of the next steps, talking about action items broken down, like was there any action items for PPP, any action item for PCCEP, et cetera, et cetera.
If we have action items, ask who's doing them and, you know, what the next steps are. I think that will help everybody be more accountable. And I thought those looked good, Tajay. And I would just say, we have been paying for Zoom to do transcription. So we have verbatim transcriptions of the meetings. So those are also available, as well as they're being on YouTube. But we couldn't keep up with all the minutes for a while there. So that was what we started doing, was the transcriptions.
Okay.
But I like where we're going.
Great.
Thank you.
I see Barb had her hand up. Barb, did you want to say anything?
Nah.
Okay, let's get started and welcome everyone to this meeting of the steering committee. My name is Elliot Young. I am one of the co-chairs, and maybe since it's small enough, we could just all introduce ourselves. There's some new folks I see on here. So I will pass it over to Taji.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Taji Chestnut is he, him pronouns. I am the other co-chair of PCCEP. Excited to be here tonight with y'all. I can keep throwing it around. Judith, you want to go?
Sure. Hi, I'm Judith Mowry. I work at the Office of Equity and Human Rights, and am one part of the staff that supports the PCCEP. And I'll pass it to Anne.
Hello, everyone. Ann Campbell. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the PCCEP secretary. I'm on the steering committee and settlement and policy subcommittee. And I'm going to pass it to Amy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Anderson, and I am here tonight, and I co-chair the Behavioral Health Subcommittee. Welcome.
And let's pass it to Vadim.
Hi, everybody. Vadim Mazursky, PCCEP member and on the Settlement Agreement and Policy Subcommittee. And I will pass it to Barb. Or not.
Thank you. Hi, Vadim and everyone. My name is Barb Rainish. I am a peer support specialist to Amy and a community member. And I will pass it to Taji. Did you go?
You went. I think Jared is maybe.
Hi, I'm Jared Hager. I'm with the U.S. Department of Justice here in my role as the monitor of a settlement agreement between the United States and the city of Portland. I use he, him pronouns. I appreciate you having me here. I will pass it to Elizabeth Allen.
And hi, I'm not Elizabeth. I'm her husband, Rob. She's on her way. She'll be here soon. I can tell you that she's here as an observer. She's a longtime member of the Alliance for Safer Communities and its predecessor, the Sexual Minorities Roundtable, which has been working with the Portland Police and other law enforcement for about 25 years now.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, my name is Lisa. I use the pronouns of she, her. I am with the Portland Guardian Angels, so we're doing community patrols weekly, and I am interested in learning more about this organization.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. Barbara Boshinsky, I see.
Hi, Barbara Boshinsky, she, her, Portland Cop Watch.
And Claudia?
Hi, everyone. I am Claudio, and I am the project assistant for PCCEP. Thanks for being here this evening.
Thanks. Leah?
Hi, everyone. I'm Leah Drebin, a community member with some experience, background in policing and criminal justice. And sorry, I have my camera off. I'm cooking dinner for my son right now, but thank you for having me here.
Thanks for being here. Nathan?
I'm Nathan. I was recently appointed to the Training Advisory Council with PPB. So I'm here sort of getting some background and seeing what PCCEP is up to.
Thanks for being here. Mary Claire?
Hi there, Mary Claire Buckley from the Portland Police Bureau, here in my role as facilitating the Bureau's compliance with the Department of Justice's settlement agreement. Thanks.
Thanks. And Peter Walden?
Hi. I actually just moved to Portland. I did about 15 years in Los Angeles working with at-risk incarcerated youth and got a lot of background down there. And since I just moved here, I'm just here to find out what's going on and how Portland is following up on all the things that have been happening.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I'm glad you left LA and joined us here in Portland. So today, I just wanted to acknowledge what's going on in our country with the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis, as well as the recent killing of Dante Wright in the Twin Cities. And, you know, we could think about that as well as our local context here, but just to highlight how important all of these issues that we're talking about are, not only locally, but across the nation. Annika, I see you just joined us. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Hi, sorry, yes, good evening. This is Anika Bent Albert, Deputy City Attorney with the City of Portland.
Great, thank you. So on our agenda, I think the first item is the bylaws. Is that right, Taji? Yes, the bylaws. So, Anne, do you want to lead us in a conversation about this?
Yes, I didn't have them ready. Claudia, can you put that on the screen? The Google Doc?
Let me just give everyone an update. What happened at the full board meeting last time is there were some changes that were recommended. We came to a vote and we ended up with a kind of split vote, but not having a majority of people voting yes, those did not pass. So what you see here is, I think, what was changed from before. Has that been updated? Anne, has anyone made additional edits?
When I looked through earlier today, I didn't see any. What we have posted here is if it's in yellow, there is that is new or has been changed. So for instance, and this is not all of the bylaws. These are only the ones that we are looking to revise. What we did is talk about them and vote on them at our last board meeting. I did send them out to PCEP members after that board meeting and sent them again last week so that people could review them. And then sent them again right before the meeting so that people would have them, PCEP members. So this particular one, it was relative. It was actually yours, Elliot. I can go ahead and read it. It has to do with when we vote on things. There was a tie, and then someone decided at the last minute to change their vote. So this is kind of putting some more structure into our process. So once a vote has been taken, the results will be tallied and announced. If there is a tie between yes and no votes, the body may reconsider the vote at the request of any member. Debate will be reopened and a new vote will be conducted.
Well, actually, Anne, I mean, since we actually have already discussed these changes, my sense from that meeting was that there were people on PCEP who wanted a broader look at these bylaws. And if that's true, if anyone is on this call that wanted that and wants to make those suggestions, but otherwise, you know, we've already discussed these and the vote was, it was not voted, it was not passed. So I don't know that it really makes sense for us to discuss the same things. Vadim?
Yeah, so that was actually my question. So the reason that at least this particular change was made was because I asked a member whether they wanted to keep their vote or not. So you know, whether it's in retaliation for that or not, that change was made. But I'm trying to understand what the differentiation is between what you thought was inappropriate and me asking a member to do that and necessitating a bylaws change to just pretty much keep on voting on the same bylaws until you get the result that you want. I mean, why is this being put up again if it did not pass the first time in exactly the same format as the previous times?
Well, I think the point of putting it up was to give people the opportunity, because they said they wanted the opportunity to revise the bylaws further. I'm in agreement with you that this particular changes were voted down. In terms of clarifying this is not just an issue related to one instance. I think what this says is—
I'm sorry, I thought that's what was just said right now. It was in response to the fact that one member asked another member to change their vote, which seems to be what referring to me.
This is not retaliation. This is trying to clarify the process. And what it says is that if there's a tie between yes and no votes, the body may reconsider the vote. So in fact, it affirms the process, but what it does is outline that process, what that process will be. So debate would be reopened and a new vote will be conducted. So it's not about preventing what you did. It's about, in fact, clarifying a process for precisely in those instances doing what you did. That's how I understand that particular change.
That's my understanding too. And if Vadim, if you don't have any more, I did make some changes. If you would scroll down, Vadim, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, I just responding to what sounded like it was a reference to something that happened. So, okay.
And we talked about these two. If you can go down a little bit further, please, Claudia.
Hey, Elliot, can I interject real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
I just noticed on the bottom, the very last line in our current bylaws, the original ones, it says, PCEP may vote to amend these bylaws. Amendments must be consistent with the PCEP plan, which hasn't even been revealed yet, I don't think. We haven't brought it up, reviewed it, correlated. This was one of the major concerns I had in the beginning, and so did Zainab, was that the documents don't correlate together. And if we're going to make radical or make amendments to the bylaws, we also need to review the PCEP plan because it says so in the bylaws. To make amendments, we have to regard the PCEP plan as our lead document.
It does not say that. It says that it has to
Right
align.
here, right here at the bottom.
I'm trying to find the plan, but if I'm understanding what you read initially, which was that the plan has to, what was the initial language you read? Could you read that
No,
again?
I'm reading it right off the bylaws. It says PCEP may vote to amend these bylaws. Amendments must be consistent with the PCEP plan, which we
Consistency
haven't brought
doesn't.
up to review yet.
Well,
No,
I
agree.
understand.
So I was just saying that consistency does not imply that it needs to be the exact, it doesn't need to be amended on the same level of the bylaws being amended. It just means that the core things that we are changing in the bylaws have to align with the PCEP plan. We're not going to do a completely different thing that's contrarian to what we're already like.
We were going to do a different thing. I said the PCEP plan has not been introduced for the public to review. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, Amy, the question, as I understand it, is, are any of these proposed amendments
Contrary.
in contrast or in alignment with the PCEP plan? I've looked at the PCEP plan, I know you have, and I think that they very much fit within it. But if someone definitely had a question about whether that was true, that would be important to raise.
Right, but how if we have a question if the plan had not been introduced yet?
It is introduced, it's on our website. It's on our website.
That doesn't mean anything. That
Okay.
doesn't mean people go there and read it.
Can we, yeah, and I think that there's ample time for people to read that. I know that that's been discussed before, and can we just continue and go down to the conflict resolution piece? That was updated a bit. Okay, right there. If people want to read that over, and if they have any feedback on that.
The general, I mean, the issue we had at the last meeting was that there was not enough comprehensive review of the bylaws. And I think we're raising here the bylaw additions that we had from the last time. Any things that people had issues with that, then we would be able to hopefully be able to hear it tonight or when we raise it to the full board. So that we can, and tonight's better for workshopping as opposed to the full board. And then we're also going to then take, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but take a look at the rest, or if there's any other bylaw additions or amendments that anyone had that someone wanted to read. I had one which was around, or not really raised about bylaws, but it's around discussing the subcommittees. Maybe it's the two different sections. Maybe it's not related to bylaws at all. Just a conversation.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that was my understanding. This document has been shared, as I said earlier, a number of times, and it just reflects any changes. In relation to the conflict resolution, there was some discussion about that it needed to be more definitive. So these are some pieces that I actually put into it to be more specific. That was some of the feedback we received.
There was also a debate around whether the public, what it would mean for the public to vote on forwarding recommendations from subcommittees. And there were all sorts of issues raised about that. But the reason for bringing it back up is that several people suggested they wanted to add more substance to they didn't even comment on most of this. The conversation was around the question of whether the public should be voting on subcommittee recommendations. In the intervening few weeks, we have not had any of those other people who said they wanted to weigh in on the document. And so frankly, I don't, I think I'm not sure what to do. Like if people want to weigh in, but then don't weigh in, where we go from here. Barb?
It is not reasonable to expect people to weigh in by logging in, finding some Google document and changing it on a Google document. That's not, yeah, that's not it.
What do you suggest?
How would you suggest we proceed? Because in between our meetings, we can't deliberate in private meetings. So if
The
people,
only thing I could potentially think of is just emailing any things that you had related to that you would want to see changed, or your opinion on the specific recommendation to the PCCEP email, so then we could raise it as an alternative to having to get onto this specific document. And if that's more accessible to folks. But it was also something that was raised by PCCEP members, all of who have discussed and been on documents and been able to respond to things in other circumstances. So I don't think it was a point about trying to get the community to do anything that they aren't accessible to them, but more about other PCCEP members who had comments on it that made it so they couldn't vote on the amendment.
Yeah, Taji, can you hold on a second? Maybe I missed it, but rather than talking about what's up on the screen right now, I thought you guys were talking about voting in the subcommittees. And when I looked at the document Anne had posted, there's no changes in that. It's still as ambiguous as it was before. And yes, I'm the person that brought it up.
I remember that discussion, and in that discussion, the people that wanted that information changed or in the bylaws it was my understanding they were going to change it on this document and add it to this document so that it's kind of a working document for everyone, but they have not done that. So
it can't be a working document for everyone if everyone isn't invited to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to open something and it says, you need so-and-so's permission, and then so-and-so, nothing else happens, and yeah, I forgot about it after asking the first time. And then the same thing was up today. And I'm not the only person that couldn't open the document. I do really appreciate that it was sent to me. I totally appreciate that. And so what I want to say is that by me raising the issue in the previous meeting, I shouldn't have to weigh in on a document. I said what I had to say. So I'm not trying to be defensive. It just seems like that issue is still ambiguous because.
Right. The changes that were proposed were voted down. And so basically we're at square one. I think it wasn't you, but other people that were suggesting, that we needed to look at other parts of the document. So that is what we were opening up. But I see two hands, Jared and then Judith.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on, this is an issue of governance. It's important, obviously, that the bylaws are put together in the form that you guys want them and that they're functional. But, I do want to, refocus the sort of community engagement part on the policing issues and the less on the governance issues. And, it's supposed to be broadly inclusive and for community. And so getting bogged down in this, I just want to, just remind the committee to center the police reform work when you can and not get too much infighting over bylaws and ministerial stuff like this. And that's just some guidance from me. Thanks.
Thanks, Jared. Judith?
I just had a process piece to share, which is the work is being done on the codification document. And I think that's fairly close to ready. And part of what had been requested for codification, there's some things that belonged in the codifying of the PCCEP, but there were some things that were more appropriate, say, for bylaws. So perhaps it would make sense to wait for the codification document to become public and come out. And then once you understand what's in that, then see what follows. And the codification document will change the PCEP plan. There's some places I think where the plan has to be changed in that. Anika, correct me if I'm wrong. But so I just think for process, you could have that we could just follow that, and the codification's coming. It will sort of help figure out what lanes things are in.
Yeah, hi, this is Anika. So right now, it's the revision and the review, I guess review and the revision of the PCEP plan itself that that will be the information in which the codification language would be drawing from. So in terms of how that looks, the PCEP plan itself is being reviewed. And then once we get approval from Department of Justice on the PCEP plan and council approval, as well as PPAs, they have to, they're be able, that's someone, a group that we have to consult with, as well as the Amici. Then we move forward to the codification. So it's a bit of a process, but it's a lot of moving parts. But so far in what you are revising in the bylaws, it doesn't seem, at least on what I've been hearing, to have an impact on the PCEP plan.
Okay, Anika,
Wait,
if you could tell us, because all of the people you mentioned does not include the PCEP in.
Oh yeah, no, you're, and I meant to, obviously, you're the first group. It's just,
Okay.
yes, so you're there first.
Okay, thanks. Just
Sorry
wanted to
about
clarify.
that.
Yeah,
Taji?
We're
I had one
working
more
from the
question.
recommendations that you made as PCEP, so it has to go through the process. It'll come
Right.
back out to you all. Thank you so much, Anika, and it's been a lot of work on Anika's part, and I really just want to give her some props for how hard she's worked on that.
Yes, no,
And
you're
I-
welcome, and I'm definitely trying to usher it through with my other priorities, but it does take time, and I want to make sure that I get the accurate information as we move forward.
Yeah, and so I just want to affirm the last thing that Anika mentioned, which is that we can discuss all of these things without it barring or relating to the PCEP plan. So I think that the quicker we can get done with them, which is mean vote on them, because I think these are issues we do need to address, but I want to get to addressing them and beyond whatever is left, because I think the ambiguous language was it fixed from where the ambiguity was, or is that the last issue we were facing? Because I think everyone else had no qualms with the other changes proposed, and no one has raised other bylaw sections that need to be proposed, that need to be edited at this time. So if we can just decide this, then we can go on to the next agenda item. Was the ambiguity figured out last time you checked, Elliot?
Ambiguity about which,
I guess-
about whether the public voting. There was just a lot of debate around that, and I don't think that was resolved. So what we actually did was we took that off the table and we're voting on the other things at the general board. But again, it did not pass. And I take Vadim's point, unless it's substantively changed, we can't just keep bringing back the same thing to
Right.
vote on it. Frankly, I don't understand why it didn't pass, because there were not a lot of people who had problems with, with most of what these changes were. So, but I take Jared's point, like, let's not get bogged down in this stuff. This is like really, in the weeds, and what we could do is that we could send a message out to the community and say, if people have suggestions for the bylaws, to send them to us by email. And if we have substantive changes, we could bring them forward to the general board meeting. That's what I would suggest.
Okay.
Is that
I guess that's okay. I just, yeah, I guess that's all right.
Oh.
I know that
did you?
I changed the conflict resolution substantially, but I agree with everyone. We're kind of getting bogged down, so we can just move on.
Okay, I think Taji, you're taking the next item.
Yeah. So I would say that we should then just go. Okay, I guess we'll just somehow come back to this item or maybe raise it. So the next item we're discussing is the Core Patrol. Generally speaking, the first thing I wanted to update everyone on was the analyst. We were able to decide an analyst with the steering committee for the Core Patrol. And so the analyst, I don't know the next steps on it besides that Thea was gonna reach out to them to get them started. I don't know if Judith, you have any updates on that?
Yeah, we're getting the contracting done, so that's, and Theo's been ill, so that's been a bit of a complication, but we are still moving forward with making sure that we have, you know, they're all in the system and that we're ready to start working with them. Theo was hoping to be back by tomorrow, so fingers crossed he'll feel well enough, and we'll find out what's going on and move it forward.
What is the timeline on being able to hire the person that was selected or the group that was selected and get the work started? What's the timeline on that?
Well, I think we're just waiting for the, you know, people have to be put into our SAP system, into the buy right system through the cities. You know, we are a bureaucracy, if nothing else. And I would think by early next week, we would be, I think we're at that point in the process that by early next week, you could start working with them. I'm, you know, I can't swear to that, but early to mid next week would be my guess and goal.
Okay, thank you, Judith, for the update on that. And then Vadim, did you have a question before?
Yeah, I do have a question, sort of a procedural question. So if we're hiring, and by we I mean PCCEP, an analyst to work on some of the things that we have going on and spending money that's allocated, should that go up for a PCCEP vote as a whole?
No, it was the final decision was by Theo on that. So it wasn't, it was something PCCEP's, the steering committee gave their opinion on which person, but because it's nuanced, we've never done that before. And it's also not from a specific subcommittee. It was also not something that PCCEP voted on in the final end. So it was Theo's decision. So thanks for asking about that. Okay, and then the other part I wanted to mention around it was that the survey we worked on, Elliot, myself, and Sean worked on a draft of a survey that could be sent out to the community via Google Forms. And I believe Sam was working on it today and was hopefully going to get us a draft to review. I don't think it's going to obviously be before the meeting, but hopefully we'll be able to review it tonight and get him revisions to get that out by like hopefully Thursday to the community to have them look at the not just the survey and like what says on the survey, but they can also look at the background document, and the background document lays out a lot more details on which recommendations and like what are the background context is, why this problem is being raised. I think we did make some really good revisions to the document based on community's feedback, which we're really grateful for. So we have a lot more in-depth information on that document, so people can look at that after looking at the survey. And the survey, yeah, so Thursday, and then it'll be out for, I believe, a month. And then at that point, we plan to also be posting once a week the responses we've been getting on the Google form. Sam will be taking care of that from the mayor's office. And we'll be posting the responses, I believe, on the map app where we were posting the initial PCCEP Core Patrol testimony section and stuff. Oh yeah, and then where's this document? The document's not sent out yet. Thursday is when the survey will be sent out, and then you'll be able to see it, and it should link to the Google form, to the Google document with the background, or it might be like a PDF. I don't know how Google form will like best adapt it. The other thing we have going on that is really important is that we're trying to get meetings with the Bureau to discuss the recommendations as they currently exist. Discussing like what we wanted, what we're asking for, what changes we're trying to figure out, and how it works and is amicable with what they're currently working on in the specific respective bureau. So that should be happening hopefully during the month while this solicitation is going on, but that's sort of up to scheduling. But they will be going on to this month. We don't know if we'll get all of them done during the month, is what I meant. Barb, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if this is like all you're going to say about it or not, but looking through the document that was that we originally had that described the different types of patrol services, I wasn't sure who had written it and if it had been looked at by the bureau or whoever. Specifically, sort of like when I was looking through the ECIT explanation, I was just wondering, it seems to me like that's something that we should have Casey or somebody from them, Casey or Chase, who's been coming to our meetings, look at and say, yeah, this is how you describe ECIT because it's an official document. I do it all the time on Nextdoor, but it's not like I'm not an official person. So that I just wanted to check in about that. And that's the same thing with the Core Patrol Service, etc.
Yeah, so I could respond a little bit to that. I think that we will hopefully be meeting with the BHU ECIT folks, both of them. I believe, I don't know if they're synonymous. And then what was the other part of the question? Oh yeah, and I think that we'll be getting feedback on like the content of what we have there, but in regards to like the context, the description of it, those are all written by us. Like they're all just based on descriptions that have been gathered from the work that we do. I know that Sean wrote a decent amount of them. And I also know that we link all of every single one of them is linked to the official website. So people can get the like verbatim official information from there as well. So we're just giving like a watered down version to make it as simple as possible. That was what the context is supposed to give. I think so the next work session on this actually will be on this Thursday at 5:30. So we'll be discussing the recommendations, discussing the survey, if it hopefully will be out by then, if there's any like quick revisions we should be making before larger community outreach is done on behalf of PCCEP by the city. We probably want to do that as soon as possible. So on that night, we'll get any feedback if the form is up to review. And then the purpose of the meeting, besides reviewing the survey, will also be to look at the recommendations and also to plan for maybe additional town halls we want to have. It was discussed that the initial town hall we had on the 4th of March was quite successful, at least in getting conversations starting and at least to making sure all people could participate. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully having that in some other formats. I believe Marcia was suggesting maybe we take that format and bring it to like another space. We would go to another space, for example, as a way we could do a town hall. So yeah, those were the Core Patrol updates. Was there any questions, comments? Did I miss anything, Elliot? Oh, last thing, sorry, I remember my own thing. We met with CAG, the Coalition of Advisory Groups, and I met with CAG along with Marcia, and we had a chance to talk with them about what we've done so far, tell them about the timeline, and if they had any feedback to give us. One of the good points that they mentioned was that we should get some opinions of some sworn officers about what we're recommending, specifically the ones like the officer wellness one, and some of the ones that directly affect them obviously would be really important to hear about from that perspective as well. And so glad CAG suggested that. And the Coalition Advisory Groups, which is comprised of, I believe, the Training Advisory Council, the CRC, Citizen Review Committee, all the advisory groups, Latino Advisory Group, ASC, like all of the Muslim Advisory Group, all of those are the ones in that room. And I believe we're working, another small update, we're working to try to get PCCEP in that space as well. I think they're doing a slower, more unorthodox onboarding for the new, because CAG is a new body as well. So working on that, but we'll give updates on that if there's anything that changed. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Elliot, do you have anything else? Or anyone else? I don't know. Oh, you're muted, sorry.
The longer term plan is that once we get this second round of survey results back from the community, we will revise again the recommendations and then look forward to bring it to the PCCEP for a vote in May. And then assuming that PCCEP votes for it, we would bring it to City Council in June. That's it.
Okay, great. Then from there, I think we had the truth and reconciliation we wanted to talk about a little bit. And did you want to start the conversation on that?
Yes, we, PCEP had a group that was working on truth and reconciliation. I can't remember the exact date when the mayor wanted us to form a subcommittee to work on truth and reconciliation. I think it was it last spring? And we formed a small subcommittee with Kia, who is no longer with us in PCEP. Meetings continued to happen, and then there were a few issues that came up, and that subcommittee paused. We are having a meeting on April 21st to regather the group of people. It's nearly 30 people that were interested in those efforts to kind of get back together and discuss some learnings that we have found in just kind of researching around the country what's been happening. And we will be sharing some of that information, talking to people about that and talking about next steps. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, you can confirm this or not, but I think we were going to invite Eduardo Gonzalez and Auntie Pentaiken, definitely pronounced the last name wrong, but they are the researchers we've been talking with, getting this great info from. They hopefully will be there, is the goal.
They will be there,
Okay.
and they will be presenting their idea.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the webinar real quick?
Yeah, it's 4 educational webinars. They are also working with Portland State University, some faculty from Laurel Singer and Manuel, I'm sorry, I don't have his last name in front of me. It's a consortium of people. And I don't know how we found them, actually.
It was, Laurel and Miguel initially reached out to them on our behalf, sort of just trying to get them to connect with us, because I think they went to a Truth and Reconciliation national webinar that occurred that they were putting on, Eduardo specifically. And I believe Eduardo and Auntie, and respond to your question, Barb, Eduardo is a former, he's I believe professionally trained, worked in transnational justice work and doing a lot of peace and truth-telling work. He actually was part of the first Peruvian Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He helped out with the Greensboro Reconciliation Commission, which was one of the first in America. That was after the police were cooperating with the KKK. So he's done some really extensive truth and reconciliation work, as probably one of the go-to people probably on the topic in the country or world, honestly. I'm really excited that he's working with us and for free as of now. So that's pretty great, and we're really appreciating his support. So he will be able to be introduced and met with everyone who wants to come to that meeting. I think it will be posted publicly. Hopefully we'll get some more folks there. And I believe that we plan to discuss the initial webinar outline plan that Eduardo and Auntie have put together. And these webinars will serve to be the informational sessions that are necessary to building more awareness of truth and reconciliation, and also building a more coalition behind some community members who would be interested in spearheading this with PCEP support, and PSU who also is willing to offer support in the sense of education expansion, as they called it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And I wanted to say that the focus is education. It's educating ourselves and our community on truth telling and truth and reconciliation. And so I hope everyone comes to that meeting and listens to these wonderful people.
Yeah, and I think that was pretty much. Is there any questions or comments on that topic, or anyone? I think anyone who's asked me to be added to that email, I've somehow been able to capture. So if anyone else wants to be added, I can get you to that email, or before we can forward you the past email, so you don't have to resend it. Okay, if there's no questions, we can move on to preparing the official agenda for the month. Oh, well, you want to talk a little bit about the other items there's only one that we didn't talk about, which was just the gun violence op-ed. Do you want to talk about that lately, Elliot?
Well, I mean, I sent out that email. There's been a lot of news happening. I mean, the major news is that the city council passed the ordinance related to gun violence, which is basically about funding non-police solutions, community-based solutions. There is some reorganization of resources within the police bureau towards investigating gun violence. And that is something that very much is in alignment with everything we've heard back from the community in the Court Patrol review. So seeing that as an opportunity, Taji and I and Marcia wrote an opinion piece that was published in the Oregonian on Sunday that basically said that. I also gave some testimony, as well as Lakiana, on Wednesday at the city council. It was not open to public testimony, but this was invited testimony that we gave, not on behalf of PCCEP as a whole, but as individual members, and for Lakiana, as his role as word is bond. So I guess we can move on to the building the agenda. And one of the issues on that, which maybe Judith has an update about, is new members, because I thought we were going to have a presentation of new members in April. Do you know where that is?
I do know exactly where it is. Thanks for asking. We'll be interviewing, we've received 3 applications so far. I do want to say there appears to be something wrong with the website, because 2 people put in applications that we didn't receive. So we just figured that out today. Claudia is working with BTS to see where they went. But we have, yes, we have some really good candidates, and we'll be interviewing them on Monday, and then they will be ready to come before if everyone sort of passes that first level, then they'll be there at the PCCEP meeting.
Will any PCCEP members be invited to those interviews?
No, there never have been. That hasn't been the process. We've asked, we have Asena will be there from the mayor's office. We've asked J.R. Lilly, I'm waiting for his confirmation from NEA. And we have Layla Hale, who is the disability and intersectionality expert in our office at the Office of Equity and Human Rights, and is also a Black woman. And I'm sorry, Black person. They used they, them, and trying to remember my mind, Theo, and the staff. So then I mean, I can't imagine everything I've seen so far. They all look fantastic. I actually wish we had more spots. I think you would like, the 2 I've talked to would be great.
Great. Well, we're looking
2 of them
forward.
are Black women, so that's really exciting as well. I'm not sure about the 3rd.
And so it seems like we'd be able to bring them forward for a vote in April. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Great.
the goal.
Awesome. Great. Because that's one of the things we wanted to have, as well as to have some alternates in case people do leave in the future. So that it's good to have that. Okay. So in terms
Elliot,
of,
I'm sorry, can I
Go
just say
ahead.
one last
Yeah.
thing? Is we also did put out the ads like in the scanner and other places and on our Facebook, recruiting. So we have
Have you
offered,
heard anything from those? Like, I don't know if there's like.
well, that's the thing. We haven't heard anything yet, but I'm not completely sure because we have this glitch, right? So one of the applicants thought the application process seemed glitchy and let me know. And then the other person, when I reached out to say, I'm just wondering if you're still going to put in an application, said that they were starting to wonder if they were going to hear anything because they had put in their application. So we're on the trail of that. So I can't really answer that well, Taji. I will say, if the 3 people who are doing, Theo and I have talked outreach personally to folks that we've heard recommendations about. So that's, I think, what's, that seems to be the most effective thing, is to make sure we're reaching out personally.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judith, and the rest of the PCEP team for that.
Okay, so in terms of the building the agenda, the items that I have are a presentation about Core Patrol, where we would talk about the survey and the fact that the survey has gone out. And the question is how much time we have for that. So let's look at the other things. Do we have any directives, Anne, that we'll be reviewing?
We're going to be reviewing one tomorrow. I'm not sure if we will have anything. I can let you know after our meeting tomorrow.
Okay, so we should hold that space maybe for that. We will have the vote on new members, so we need to have a section for new members. And then the other items are bylaws, although right now it doesn't seem like we will have bylaws changes to vote on. And the TRC, do you think, does there need to be an update on TRC? Is that like a broader update other than the regular updates about subcommittees?
I don't think so. I doubt we'll need that too much space on that. What I do think is that we'll want an opportunity to, I think we should somehow try to just get these revisions voted on again and just completely remove that other part and say that any other revisions people want to have to the bylaws, bring them before the body meeting, or at the body meeting, because then we'll just vote on it as it exists. We'll read them, but I don't think before I don't know, I don't know. I just feel like it's like we have done the work on that already. I don't want to just drop that, but I don't want to leave that too much discussion. So if we send out a note initially now about getting any additional information, that if anyone has any bylaw revisions besides the ones already being proposed, then, say something and forever hold your silence, or however the saying goes.
But we've already voted on some of them already. Do we gather them all and revote on them, or?
I think it's just like making an amendment to the existing amendment, and so this will just be a revote on the amended existing bylaws, which is everything but the ambiguity of that one section. We'll just not have community members voting on recommendations until we can figure out a solution to the issue of retention and whatnot. And if that's ever going to be something we factor in.
That could work, but also let me just say this one thing. We're open to members putting forward amendments, so somebody could write that. Okay.
Someone could write the language that needs to be. We could even mention that so people could maybe think about it. And then I think we also made those adjustments to the conflict resolution section. Zinab has suggested another name. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, we can make those changes as well. Thank you.
So Vadim, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in again about this bylaw change. The email that went out to the PCEP distribution list on February 24th, when these whole bylaws were still in the infancy stage, to me says, I'll skip the first paragraph, but this is from you, Elliot. It says, if people want more time to debate before they vote, then they should delay voting. But I will ask the steering committee to adopt a rule going forward that doesn't allow us to reopen a vote when it doesn't go the way any individual would like. The time for arguing one's case is before a vote, not after, unless you want to follow the Trump rule.
I don't know what the point is that you don't need to read the whole email. That was something we already hashed over.
That's it. So like my point is, this seems to be per the email in response to me having asked Lakayana about his vote and whether he wanted to change it.
We already
and the response was that it should be the discussion should be before the vote, not after. But now we're putting the same thing up for vote again. So it just seems a little bit inconsistent with the reason why these votes are taking place.
We have decided and agreed.
Thank you for letting me talk. I appreciate that minute. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think we agreed that there was the changes we wanted to make to the conflict resolution section, and we're removing that other section. I think it's relevant to bring this back as a vote, just as you would do on any document that had changes need to be made, and there was people who were confused about whether or not we could add other sections to the bylaws for amendments. And I think we agreed that we would do that as well. And so if anyone has any additional bylaw edits to make, so that we could have all of those voted on together, because then we could discuss it as well at the general body meeting.
I see, Lakiana, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to just follow up on what was just said. Part of the reason why we had to revote anyways is because we didn't have a quorum of folks at that meeting. So yeah, that's what I would just say.
Well, that's not entirely true. A quorum would be just 50% plus one. So we had, I believe, 9 people at the meeting. The issue was that there was, I think the vote was like 4. It was
right.
Like there wasn't a majority for it, but it was kind of a split vote. It was kind of a split vote. And, you know, in the cases in the past when we've had a split vote, like for someone voting for chair of a subcommittee, we've brought it back. But I think that, you know, there were people missing, and there was also seemed to be lack of clarity about some of these issues. So giving people time seems to make sense, which is, I think, what you were saying, Lakiana. Amy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, excuse me for saying this, but just a minute ago, Judith mentioned and everyone mentioned that the codification is going to be a really good blending of what should be and what might be merged from the plan, and that we should wait until the draft version of that comes out, because then we'll know where to place our ideas inside the document. I think we need to let this particular thing die right now and bring it back up after we see the draft. I think that makes way more sense, and then we're not banging heads.
So I the reason I affirmed this after Anika said it is because of this. I was saying Anika already explicitly mentioned that whatever changes to the PCCEP plan or to the codification document have no effect on the bylaw changes we're making now. So we can make these changes now and they'll have no effect on the bylaws, because the PCCEP plan and the codification document are related to those things. And she said, what you mentioned, Anika, I mean, I'm just basing it on that, is that it was that the issues we're addressing will have no effect on the PCCEP plan, whether it's changed or not.
Okay, now I gotta ask, what's the urgency to run this all forward? Where are you coming? I just need to understand the urgency.
Okay, let's all raise hands. So I think Judith seemed to want to say something.
Well, I said Anika had something to respond to.
Okay,
Yeah.
Anika?
That wasn't exactly what I heard.
Yeah, no. I was just saying that from what I've read and what you've discussed with the bylaws, the changes that you're making, they don't seem to be in conflict with the revisions or the current PCCEP plan right now. And so, I mean, it's up to you whether or not you want to move forward with amending the bylaws now or waiting until a later date. But right now, I mean, they're essentially 2 different kind of documents. The PCCEP plan is a bit of a bigger, broader scope, and the bylaws go into some quite narrow detail. And I haven't seen any conflict. I don't know if Jared you had, but I so far I haven't.
I have not, and I agree, Anika. I think that's great advice. It's up for the committee to decide if they want to vote on the amendment to the bylaw.
Okay, Anne, you have your hand raised.
What we could do is the amendments that we had, the one on conflict, and I'll have to look over the list and see what else we could. I will reach out to Zainab and ask for her feedback. And then I'll go through that list, and then I can have them at our next meeting so that we could vote on them.
So there seems to be a difference of opinion of members who are here. So why don't we do you want to continue to discuss, or we could just vote on whether to move this forward to the general body or not at this time? I'm happy to go to a vote unless you we need more discussion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
Taji.
happy to go to a vote. I know that Amy, you did ask like, what's the rush? And I think that it's not, I don't think there's any rush in particular. I think that it's just these amendments have been already raised. So I think they're good amendments that need to be addressed within our procedures. And obviously that's not going to solve any future issue, but they're just the bylaw changes for now, and we can make additional changes in the future because the document's very malleable. So I think if we can raise these changes, vote on them and agree on them, and then we can move on and have the procedures as they should be, because that's, yeah.
Okay, so.
See, I have a total understanding now of everything going on, so it makes more sense about everything. I just was looking at the verbiage. So we're going to modify the verbiage, then it should be okay. I don't have an issue with it. If I just don't necessarily like the way it reads because it's not inclusive language.
Okay, well, maybe Amy, you could send whatever inclusive language you think should be on it to Anne, and then that could be included. So is there anyone who opposes moving it forward at this point to the general board?
Can I ask a point of process, Elliot?
Sure.
At the steering committees, I think we usually request public comment before votes are taken by the PCCEP members. Is that
true? I mean, we've sort of just assumed that the public would comment, but yes, public, if you have any comment on this or any other issue now, please raise your hand.
I just wanted to be sure that people knew they had the opportunity to weigh in.
Yeah,
if they'd like.
no, good point. I think we assume that, but yeah. Okay, so it sounds like there is no opposition to moving it forward. So we'll move it forward with the understanding that Anne will reach out to Zainab, and that Amy will also reach out to Anne with her suggestions for new wording, and that will be brought forward. So besides voting on the new members, having the core patrol thing, talking about the bylaws, I also had an idea, which I wanted to run by the steering committee, which was to invite Mike Myers, who's the new community safety director, to introduce him to PCCEP and to the community and have him talk about what he sees his role and his office doing. He's going to be central to the new ordinance that was passed. Is that something people think would be a good idea?
Can I go one step even further and see if we can try to get a whole party and get Nike there too?
Sure.
Because I was generally thinking we should get OVP, but I'm like, basically they now work so close together. I think it would be really good to hear about what they have planned going forward together. If they're available, you know, I know they're busy people, so we should probably make the ask sooner than later.
I mean, the other thing is, if there's time in the agenda to have the 3 new council members, we've had Ted Wheeler a few times, we've had Joanne Hardesty, but we have not had Mingus Maps, Dan Ryan, or Carmen Rubio come. And since they were the prime motivating group behind this new gun violence prevention ordinance, I think it would be useful to just introduce them to our committee and to the community if they're available. So I don't think this would need to be like, you know, basically it would be an introduction and for Nike, for OVP, and for the community, say for Mike Myers, it could be more talking about what they're actually doing.
Sorry, now it basically seems like Elliot and I are talking to each other, but I want to make sure everyone else can understand that you can join in, please. I think that I had an additional suggestion off of that, was that I don't know if they'll be available this soon with the timeline, because I know I have like a Multnomah County person I was supposed to meet with not till like May 15th. So I just don't know if they'll have the availability. And we could obviously make the ask, but I'm thinking that maybe it would be good to hear from them in May, make the ask now for May, because I think that we also will have the Core Patrol stuff going on during that time. So it would be good maybe to try to blend the two and make it some sort of info session / introduction in May when we can plan out farther ahead, because I don't know about their schedules. That was just a suggestion. I don't know how everyone else, I saw general feedback in the comments that were positive to the ideas. So unless someone hates the commissioners, doesn't want to hear from them or something.
Yeah, and so people from the public also, if you have thoughts on inviting these individuals,
Can you repeat what individuals?
Mike Myers, who's the new community safety director, Nike Green, who is the director of the Office of Violence Prevention, and the 3 city commissioners, Mingus Mapps, Dan Ryan, Carmen Rubio, and the new commissioners who were the sponsors of the gun violence ordinance. And I think, Taji's point about maybe moving the commissioners to May might be a better idea. Yes, Barbara.
This new community safety director, who do they work for in the violence prevention? Are they PPB?
I believe reports directly to the mayor, right?
Yeah, I think that they report, they're sort of overseeing all of and coordinating all of the different offices, but reporting to the mayor. They're not PBB.
Oh, okay. Just question.
Yeah,
Barbara, that can,
sorry, Judy.
I could just describe his role is to work to try to synthesize, put together the functions of public safety that includes emergency, the emergency management, the fire, police. It's a bigger piece, but part of that piece is obviously some of the other, like Project Respond and some of those other things. So would you like us to, as staff, we can invite Nike and Mike Myers to this next meeting. Would you like to invite the 3 commissioners to the May meeting?
That sounds good. I think just to leave more space, that makes sense.
Great. And thanks for Peter has a comment about this on inviting officials. It's important not to operate in silos within a bureaucracy. Thank you, Peter, for your input.
Yeah,
okay.
I think one of the other, this is basically just foreshadowing for the future in the summer, because I'm thinking about, I was talking with Elliot about how in May and in June, we'll be sunsetting on a few of our larger projects like the Core Patrol and the Truth Reconciliation. And so I was trying to think about in the future, in the summer, we're going to have a lot of opportunity to work on some, not like trying to spend too much time on governance stuff, but trying to create a little bit more infrastructure around PCCEP. So working on a handbook of sort that could be disseminated to the members, and the public obviously can use it and to whatever need they want, but it would be trying to lay out all those acronyms, trying to lay out all of the bylaws, having it very accessible to members as public, and then also trying to work on, getting more into other things that we can try to work better with the staff on, how we can better have other members of the committee participating in different subcommittees, trying to really just work on some strategic planning and foreshadowing going forward, understanding, people's terms are coming up, and just trying to plan around how we can have a good full rounded body as well as a good foundation. So that's some stuff coming up in June for people to look forward to. Not the sexiest of stuff, but is still important. And Jim, question?
Yeah, I just had a comment. I know that Zainab has talked about the need for those kind of things. So I think it would be great to ask if she wanted to be involved in that, especially a manual for new members. She thinks that would be, well, and she's mentioned many other things. So
yeah, no, this was basically, verbatim of things that Zena mentioned, plus me trying to think about how we'll have a little more time on our hands when some of these projects sunset, not thinking everything will just stop in June or July, but.
Elizabeth, did you raise your hand?
I did. Today at ASC, former mayor and chief of police, Tom Potter, was talking, and he emphasized that DPSST is an important stopping spot, a bottleneck in this state. Have you considered DPSST?
Considered inviting them?
Yes. Do they work with you regularly?
No, because there is a training advisory committee, and that would seem to fall more under the TAs, the training advisory committee, than under us, since DPS, they do training, right?
Well, yes, but they are the state academy. Every police officer must go through them before they can go anywhere.
Right. So that's a good idea to, in the future, to bring them along, and so we know what they do and they know what we do. That's a great idea.
We also have a Portland Academy, but DPSSD is first stop for anybody who has graduated from a police training school that wants to work in law enforcement in the state of Oregon.
I know that TAC does work with DPSSD before, but I would be interested in hearing about a lot about their training procedures in relation to the community, in relation to how they train their officers to interact with the community. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there that we could definitely opine on with them if we got them to come. So great idea. Thank you, Elizabeth, for bringing it up.
So one thing I forgot to mention is that according to our plan, a quarterly report for the first quarter should have come to the steering committee tonight to be voted on in the April meeting. Theo was working on that. Judith, do you know where that's at?
I know that he fell ill last week, and when Claudia and I spoke to him, he had hoped to get it done in time to send it to the meeting, but I'm assuming he's just been too ill to work on it. Sorry.
Okay. I think Anne has also volunteered to maybe help with that. So maybe you could put Theo in touch with Anne when he's back on his feet.
I also sent him an email.
Done.
I
Pardon?
sent him an email.
Yeah. And it's just, yeah. And I think he was close, was what he intimated. So I will absolutely ask him. But Anne Marcia did send an email asking if we could do a separate sort of timeline highlighting what the racial equity subcommittee had accomplished. And I don't know if you feel it should be part of the plan, the larger report that comes out, but that might be a part that we've had a special request for.
You know what?
I'm not understanding what are you asking me to follow up with Marcia?
No, I'll check in with you on it later.
Okay, thank you.
I think it was because they were, correct me if I'm wrong, Judith, but it was because I think they had their special community highlights that I think they were trying to figure out a way to best capture that in the quarterly report. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So let's, in reference to Judith's request that we sort of go back over what we've decided at this meeting, we have decided to bring forth the bylaws in revised form for a vote. We have built the agenda, which includes inviting Mike Myers, voting on new members, a discussion of core patrol, where we're at, and discussion of the survey. And hopefully the quarterly report could be brought forward and presented and voted on as well. And I think that is a full agenda for the next time. In terms of the order that goes in, I would suggest we introduce Mike Myers at the beginning because he might not want to hang out for 3 hours with us, and then move on to core patrol, and then do the sort of more sort of internal workings of PCCEP later, which would include the quarterly report, the bylaws, and voting on new members. So that would be my suggestion for an order.
We need a little bit, I think we probably should have 20 minutes for Mike and Nike if we want to allow the community to ask them some questions in the beginning.
Sure. I see Barb's.
I'm sorry, I just want to ask you where do the subcommittee report outs go?
That always goes at the beginning. So
Yeah, okay.
That's the first thing.
And then the minutes too. We should probably make sure it's noted in the thing that we'll vote on the minutes quickly in the beginning. I think we can do it a different way on the, I don't know the rules for voting, but I'm pretty sure if it's minutes, you can just, if anyone has issues with it, you just raise it. You don't have to actually call out everyone.
Well, do we have minutes from the last board meeting?
Oh, true.
But I don't think we have minutes, so we'll
We're
start.
working on catching up to the meetings minutes, so hopefully we'll have something.
Oh, beautiful. That would be great.
Yeah.
It really could just be the key stuff for that.
Yeah,
especially-
I'm not promising, but we're trying.
Okay. Thank you so much, Judith.
Barb, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. But I also just got distracted, so I don't know if you guys talked about it. You guys started talking about May, and Theo's not here. I don't know when the Coco next thing is, but it seems like if it wasn't last month and it's not next month.
Jared
Every
might
3
know.
months.
I just, this
I
isn't.
do know, and it's not going to be out until June or July, and that's a shift.
July.
Mary Claire can tell you about it.
No, July.
July.
But thank you, Barb. It's great to remember that timeline. That's a regular thing we have to put into the agendas. Thank you.
And at that point in July, we'll probably be wrapping up for the fun August in-person court day, which I'm excited to be able to go to. So,
so there are two other issues that, since it seems like we have time now that we've gone through our agenda. One is this issue of the federal deputizing of PPP, which has happened, and the other is the question of the DOJ officially finding the city out of compliance. So I don't have any like specific things to say, but maybe we can get some information about those two items. So Mary Claire, would you be able to give us an update on the this federal deputizing of PPP officers?
Right now, I'm sorry to say I don't. It was relatively very new news. So I can get you the information and get back to you, or say something.
Jared, do you know anything about that?
Only what I read in the paper, and they wall me off from any potential conflicts. So I'm not really involved in that. I could try to find information, but no promises.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that Mary Claire, for the full board meeting when we have the PPP updates, that might be an important thing to update, just to let the community know what's going on with that. And then on the DOJ finding the city out of compliance, what is the path forward? And I don't know who to ask. Jared?
Yeah, I can speak to that, or at least the next step. The process is laid out in the settlement agreement at 178 to 182 paragraph numbers. And after the notice issues, the city has 30 days to respond in writing to our concerns. And that date is May 2nd. There's a caveat in there that, extensions for reasonable amounts of more time won't be, denied. So if the city needs more time, we would give that to them. If the written response doesn't satisfy the department's concerns, we proceed to an in-person meeting as soon as I think convenient or practicable, or there's some language, as soon as possible. And then we would have a discussion, I think, with the city attorney and, and maybe the chief would be there. And if that in-person discussion doesn't resolve the department's concerns, we would move to a mediation that's spelled out in paragraph 181. And if the mediation didn't resolve our concerns, we would, proceed to file a motion for enforcement with the court. So it all ends with our concerns being, satisfied, I think. So that's where we're headed. And it's a little bit unclear now specifics, but that's the broad.
And from your experience doing this in other cities, and I guess maybe I'm just an optimist, do you think they'll probably give language that is satisfactory at the first outslot of it May 2nd, or whenever they get it? And do you think then we'd be able to discuss it at the May meeting unless they extend it?
That would require some speculation that I don't think's, appropriate, because I don't know.
I guess just do other has this like back and forth thing it's you can't opine on that just because it's
No, I can say that this hasn't happened in other cases. I don't believe there's been a formal motion, made in other cases, and even a formal notice has not been issued in other cases, except I think recently in Albuquerque. But historically, I don't think we've taken that route.
I'm glad to know Portland's the first at something.
Barb.
Barb.
So my question about that is then all the other cities that the DOJ has their thumb on, the police department, is it that they all did okay and didn't use excessive force, etc. during, their protests? Or is stuff still may come out about other cities? Does that make sense?
I get your question. I don't like the characterization that the department has its thumb on a
Okay,
police bureau, but I do take the point. I think that a lot of things are in flux in a lot of different cities. So, I don't think it would be, appropriate to characterize Portland as alone. There are other cities that have had, extended protests and questionable responses where there are public reports now out from the offices of inspector generals. You can find New York City's online. The Denver Police Department is online. The LA County just came out, and those are some critical assessments of those cities' responses to extended protests. And they're worth reading.
Appreciate that.
And I would also remind folks that our agreement is different than many other cities that DOJ has done, where they've had a decree where a federal judge is already overseeing it. And there are cities that have been found and have been under DOJ for 15, 18 years or what have you. So, so it's just our settlement agreement is a little different than what the standard. In this case, the DOJ is actually the monitor rather than the federal judge. So there are distinct, differences between our setup and other cities who have DOJ involvement.
And the other thing I would add is that it's the DOJ report or finding out of compliance is not precisely about excessive force. It's about lack of training and lack of following through on the procedures of reporting about force, which is maybe a distinction without a difference. But I think.
No, I think you're accurate to say that. That's,
There's an accountability component too,
yes,
which is, at the back end, identifying when an officer may or may not have used excessive force.
So do you see the DOJ accepting no more reports or a 10th of them? Do you see DOJ saying, okay, you're too busy to write them, so it's okay?
No, definitely not.
Okay, well, we are at 6:55. I think we have exhausted all of our topics and late breaking news. Unless there are any other issues people want to raise, I want to thank everyone for participating today and coming up with the agenda for our next board meeting, and look forward to seeing you all then. And also remember, there is a Court Patrol work session coming up on Thursday. When are the other upcoming meetings? Does anyone want to announce them?
There's a settlement and policy subcommittee meeting tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
And I believe the retreat for PCCEP is next week on the 20th.
PCCEP member retreat is next Tuesday night. Get your RSVPs in, please.
Yes. Thank you.
Everyone. Have a
Take
great
care.
afternoon. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.